Okay, I would like to call the Village Land Finance Personnel Committee meeting to order for Monday, June 12th, 2023 at 6:45. Roll call, Yates is present, Reed
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Paquette is absent. Discussion and possible recommendation to the village board on payment of the bills.
Yeah, I forgot your report, so I'm just gonna wing it. Thank you. Couple of these I know were doubles, the court fines, they're a little bit higher this time, so they were for 2 months. As well as Village of Sussex, with 2 months worth of treatment and water and surf contracts.
Looks like we've got the first chunk of well number 3 billing.
Yeah, it's starting to. So yeah, everything else is pretty routine.
Stevie or Amy, did either of you have any questions about any of the?
No, I noticed the doubling up and then Brenda obviously, so like, wow, we got so much for the treatment and everything else, but. That answered my question before I could ask it, so. With that being said, I have no further questions after Brenda's summary, so I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to recommend payment of the bills. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have the first and the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Village Board and Planning Commission meeting to order. June 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Pledge of allegiance. We'll get here.
One allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do Village Board roll call.
Blake, here, Martin, here, Nellis.
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Yates,
Here.
Plan Commission, Yates,
Here.
Brim,
Here.
Nellis.
Here.
Blake, here, Hay Lightner,
Here.
Van Bennek is absent, Janice
Here. Statement of public notice.
has been posted.
Public hearing, item 5 is a public hearing for the rezoning of parcel LANV 0067965, LANV 00679650001, and LANV 00679650002 at 20151 West Main Street, Landon, Wisconsin, from B2 and Q to LI Light Industrial. So I would like to, do we need a motion to open the public hearing or just? Yes, I think. Would entertain a motion from the planning commission to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public on the rezoning items for the agenda item here? Ben?
If I may, I would like to start by just, for some folks that might not have been at a planning commission meeting, just give a summary of what we're talking about.
Great, thank you.
And then turn it over to the applicant. To do the same, provide an overview of their proposed project. So this property is currently known as Daily Express or Daily Trucking. It's along Main Street at the intersection of the Budline Trail, just south of the Budline Trail. It is currently used as a I will loosely say as a contractor storage yard. My understanding is various semi-trailers, et cetera, use it as a stop off location, temporary storage of trailers. Area photos would indicate that there's also stockpiles of various material. There's an office building, there's an accessory garage building. The business across the street, Land and Tank, currently stored some of their finished product there before it ships off to destination. So you might notice some big blue tank trailers in the back there. The site is currently zoned a combination of B2, which is the downtown business district, and Quarry. To the east in the back of this land shares a common border with Hallquist Stone. So the applicant here, this whole process originally started because HM Brand would like to purchase it and use it as a contractor storage yard for their demolition business. The trouble with that is that the current use is technically a legal non-conforming use. The only zoning district in the village that allows a contractor storage yard is the light industrial zoning district. The village's comprehensive land use plans lays out kind of the intentions of the joint board and planning commission process that created the plan, and that shows that the general use for this particular area, these three properties together, I'll refer to as the property, that the future use for the property is indeed industrial. So in that sense, the previous boards and plan commissions have kind of laid the way that, you know, they're kind of accepting that the current use of this is industrial and that the foreseen future use is industrial. So to procedurally take care of the current legal non-conforming use issue, the proper way to proceed is this rezoning process. So this proposal has been before the plan commission twice now. The first time, as I will loosely call, a conceptual review and a business plan of operation. The first attempt, the village did approve the applicant to use the offices in the plan of operation to allow them hopefully some momentum to continue to move forward toward closing on their purchase of the property. And then the second time it was before plan commission was last month, where they completed a full submittal of the site plan of operation. The plan commission provided thorough comments on that at last month's meeting. A couple of highlights from that is, Alex, forgive me, did you hand this out yet?
I have not, I have copies for whoever wants.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind while I'm explaining this, if you could hand out the printout of the updated site plan of operation that you have.
I think Fred did this copy.
The question would be, is it dated the June 6th or the May date?
June
6th. Okay, that would be updated copies.
May date.
Did you have one on the?
Yeah.
The one in the packet was made, but there was the new one on the.
No, we're going on the table here.
So the May 8th version would have been prior to the plan commission's last round of comments. The June 6th takes those comments into account. Specifically, their intent for a to satisfy the screening requirements of the zoning ordinance with the new electric remote gate. It's privacy screen. They emailed some pictures of what that could conceptually look like. Placing some picnic tables on the outside of the fence in the grass area between their entrance and the Budline Trail, and some picnic tables on the inside of the fence, presumably for employees. The plan commission discussed the area to the south, seed container fuel storage. The village does have an ordinance on shipping containers. and what the plan commission discussed at the meeting was that the village's shipping container ordinance does allow the plan commission to exercise some discretion if it's part of a greater plan of operation. And in this case specifically, a contractor's storage yard does require a special use permit. So allowing up to 6 shipping containers was part of the special use permit. That's part of this full application here. And the plan commission contemplated using that not only because it's kind of generally consistent with their intended use, but because of the screening and location, post-location of that is not anticipated to have an adverse effect on surrounding properties. The other item of note is that the village ordinances require that all paved areas that are used for parking and maneuvering vehicles, all site areas used for that must be paved with asphalt. The current extents of the asphalt paving are labeled on the plan, and it's just on the east side of the current office, which is the first building closest to their entrance. Past plan commissions apparently reached that agreement with the existing property owner that would suffice. However, the plan commission had concerns about dust, and part of the plan of operation and special use permit acknowledged that or require and acknowledge that the applicant place reground asphalt down, which is, you know, it's in effect gravel, but it's still sticky and tacky, so it packs tight. And the applicant and the planning commission feel that would adequately control dust, but that's part of also why the special use permit is reviewable every 24 months. Or happens to be an issue with dust or something that persists, then the planning commission can revisit that in the future. The applicant had previously indicated their use, and I'll let them describe that in more detail. But that this would be kind of a landing spot for their equipment and their trucks. They do show one area on the east northeast part of the property where they would have a concrete or asphalt stockpile. It was discussed at another location in town that they're currently operating, that they're recycling asphalt shingles, and there's other activities unrelated to the applicant happening at the other site. They indicated that those activities will not be taking place on the site, that it's only related to their demolition business, and they are not storing demolished material on the site other than the concrete and asphalt that is indicated on the plan. So in summary here, the reason this is going to public hearing is it's procedurally required by the ordinance for any rezoning to go to a public hearing after first being reviewed by the plan commission, which has been done. Referred to the village board, and the village board scheduled this hearing. My understanding from the clerk is that notice has been given to all properties within 300 feet, and that the postings have been taken care of as required by the ordinance. So those are my comments in summary, unless Attorney De La Mora has anything to add for that to that before the applicant wants to give an overview of their.
I would like to add emphasis to what you just said. This is a hearing that's being held before the village board. However, the plan commission will take action following the hearing to basically render a recommendation to the village board. Then the village board will take up the issue of rezoning, and in conjunction with the recommendation to the board, plan commission should comment about the allowance of the shipping containers, about the limited amount of paving to be done, that is accepting the recycled asphalt, and that this matter is to be reviewed as is required in the ordinance in 24 months, periodically, 24 months, to assure that there are no issues with the plan of operation.
Thank you. So with that, I'll allow the applicant if you have anything to add.
Sure, yeah, I'll jump in here. So for introductions, my name is Attorney Alexander Kay. To my left is Ms. Cheyenne Brandt, Michael Brandt, Austin Brandt, and then the real estate broker Matt Judson here to my right. So I think Mr. Bedwood did an excellent summary of where we've been and where we want to go. Just kind of highlight a few points. There is an offer to purchase that's pending. So currently we are not the owners. We have an offer to purchase to buy it. So we're moving along the process quickly as we can with you guys. Hopefully we can accomplish the rezoning and then close on the offer to purchase. I think for everyone in this room and for locals, having a local business is a big plus. The current owners are based out in Pennsylvania, so they're a much larger conglomerate. By doing this change of ownership, you're gonna have a local business with a local family who's invested in the community, so that's a big thing. To reiterate what Ben was saying, this proposal aligns with your future zoning map. You guys put out a future zoning proposal. You have this area zoned as industrial, so we would be rezoning it from the B2 industrial, B2 business district to the light industrial. So we're going in accordance with what you guys are going to get to in the future. Question is, what is the future? So for this property, the future is now. We're doing that rezoning. In terms of historical use, this property's always been used as somewhat of a contractor storage yard, equipment storage. So this isn't like a residential or a retail store. This property has always been used for similar purposes. The last point I would just make note of is that there previously was some discussion about how much of the property needed to be asphalted. It was recommended by the Plan Commission last meeting that the material that's put down is the reground pavement asphalt as opposed to the traditional asphalt that the layperson would see on parking lots, stuff like that. The reason for that being is that the equipment that's used by H&M brand is extremely heavy and would crack the asphalt as it would be, so it would be basically useless. This would control the dust, which the citizens are concerned about, also be a good use for H&M brand, and they also do just right down the block, they do the reground asphalt, which is a perfect fit for both sides. So with that being said, we're happy to answer any questions. There's the rezoning thing, which we're here for tonight. There's also the special use permit and then the plan of operation, which I think are in kind of on a tangent of tonight's focus, but we got the whole team here, so we can answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any comments from the public about the rezoning? Yes, Mr. Summers.
Don Summers, 19543 West Main Street. I'm familiar with their location that they took over in Milwaukee years back. I used to drive past it several times a week. The place looked like a disaster before they took it over. They cleaned it up, grass was cut, there were no weeds. Was very presentable, equipment was parked neat and orderly enough at driving past, people would notice. It was on the northwest side of Milwaukee, and they were towards the end of a dead-end street. So I think they would be a vast improvement appearance-wise from the street. And what is there?
Thank you. Any other comments, public comments? No. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The public hearing is now closed. So now discussion and possible action to rezone. LANV 006-7965, LANV 006-7965-001, and LANV 006-7965-002 at 20151 West Main Street, Landon, Wisconsin, from B2 and Q to LI Light Industrial. Part A is a recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Couple of things. First off, the plan commission did. Work up a special use permit. I don't see it on the agenda for the village board to take up tonight.
It is part and parcel of the rezoning.
Okay. Couple of items that were, we put on that special use is the knowledge that the frontage on Main Street does not meet the district standards. That we did ask for reclaimed asphalt on the portion of the property as outlined. I do not ever remember us agreeing to stockpiling concrete and asphalt forever there. It just was supposed to be stockpiled until it was crushed and then spread. But we did give approval for 6 sea containers. And those are basically the only items that were on the special use permit.
I think if I remember correctly, I think for stockpiling, the requirement was simply that the area be defined. Is that correct, Ben?
Yeah, I recall discussion that, replacing the reground asphalt, they were going to be bringing it in, grinding it on site, laying it out. And we wanted them to identify where on the site. I do not recall that we put a time constraint on that, and perhaps that's part of your.
Well, I guess the thing that, is constantly, bringing asphalt in and grinding it and hauling it back out. I don't understand maybe why they didn't grind it where they picked it up, because I suppose their crusher is portable, but. I'll have to review, we'll have to take a look at the crushing. I don't know if we can crush outside of the areas. But village engineer did say that we do allow crushing outside of the quarry on a regular basis, but
With the permit.
with a permit, yes. So that's the only I have for my comments right now.
I had also noted, Mike, that the plan commission said. Some conditions of the approval of the other items, which the attorney pointed out, are part and parcel to this whole package were. Any of the plan of operations, site plan and special use permit were. Previously approved, conditioned on getting the rezoning. Unconditioned upon actually closing on and owning the property. And that's, they take care of the resubmittals of, say, the interior floor plan and the reground asphalt, I believe, within 90 days after owning.
We're gonna ask for them to try to join this as all one parcel? Or you want to stay 3 parcels?
We did ask that each of the 3 parcels individually meet the minimum area requirements of the ordinance, and the applicant elected to not join them at this time. And then along with that is slight issue if they ever wanted to sell off one of the 3 parcels, etc. At that point in time, they would have to grant and sort out cross-access easements and all those items, if that was the direction they wanted to go.
I see on a new site plan, there's some salt storage, which wasn't on the previous site plan. Are there some special conditions that we need for that salt storage?
The village recently passed or amended the salt storage ordinance. And I believe as part of those requirements, they had to, I think, A, get a permit, and B, demonstrate compliance with, I think it's B&R that has specific like storage requirements on that.
Yeah.
Specifics about how to cover it, how it drains, all that stuff. So the way that I Just my knee jerk reaction to that, the way that I would react would say, okay, if that's where they show salt storage, that means that they can come back and apply for salt storage there without having to also amend the plan of operation site plan.
Right.
It does not, absolve them from the need to get a special permit for the salt storage.
Do you have any intent to do that right away?
Before winter,
So that's
we put on a concrete slab. 6-foot blocks. And we'll go up and then we put a.
Yeah, we-
cover on it. So
We
it's-
did recently actually create an ordinance for that. So I would make sure that you review those requirements, because we do allow them now, but we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on that. And, they require some engineered drawings and stamped and inspected and.
The exact same thing in Sussex, in the current yard.
Yeah.
Plan. It's a temporary building, so their ordinance requires stamp plan, but we did have plans drawn.
Just make sure you're out ahead of that one.
Yeah.
Where is the salt going to be used?
Places that we snowplow. We're also a
It's gonna be a
snowplowing
snowplow
contractor,
in operation
yes,
out of there.
which I made bid the landing,
I'm sorry,
which I also made bid the landing work this winter.
yeah, but aside from that, this had not been discussed before, had it?
No.
You know, snowplow, yeah, we put that on there.
Yeah, we were trying to be more thorough in our application.
Yeah.
Pending the comments that we received. Going into this process, it was March, and we had come out of snow season, it really wasn't on the forefront of our mind as we were going into the spring. Busy season for construction, but under a meeting internally, we're like, well, actually. We need to, be really thorough, so we don't end up going through this process again in 6 months, so we're just trying to bring everything up.
And on the recommendation of the board, it was, make sure that you have everything you're gonna do.
Right.
In this plan, we snowplow, commercial snowplow, and so we use salt.
And what is the volume of salt that you contemplate? Sorry,
At any given time,
max.
about 150 ton. Somewhere right there, but we use that up and then we get more. We have reserve down at Jones Island around 1,000 ton. But we've never.
We
had
don't
to use-
store that on
We don't
site.
store it on site. Thus. Municipalities really don't want you to store that much salt privately. The municipalities do, a lot of them, but. It's pretty typical for us to have about 100. If it doesn't snow for a little while. We have 150 ton. But, which equates to approximately six quad axle loads. Of salt. Which isn't really,
It's not all that much.
it's not a lot.
actually.
It looks
So
like
you could use that up in one storm, basically, if it's a bad storm.
it looks like you just identified one structure for this. right?
Yeah,
Our current area where we store is about like 24 by 24 or something. It's relatively small.
I would just state that in our updated plan of operation dated June 6th. For use in occupancy, it does not say snow plowing. I would suggest that be revised. Other areas of the plan of operation, they do indicate hours of use. They indicate 24/7 during emergency snow operations, and under equipment listed on the site, they list I had it, and I just lost it, various snow plows and meter. So I would just. If everyone's in agreement, I would just suggest that section E, use and occupancy, just clearly state snow plow.
Do we have a copy of that amended plan of action? or, operation. Don't have that.
It was submitted last Wednesday to the village clerk. I'm not sure if it got distributed. But the updated, after the last plan of operation, there were several recommendations that had been made that we incorporated, so we put those in the updated version. So that's somewhere with the village.
Do any of the commissioners have an issue with updating that section to include plowing operations?
I'll make a motion to add snow plowing to the plan of operation.
Second.
Do we have any other questions of the applicant? Prior to rendering a recommendation?
I do.
Ben?
The applicant intends to improve, I'll say, the screening, landscaping, beautification along the bug line trail. So one thing I just noticed here, well, I'm just curious as to any idea of the heights of the planned material and just kind of timing for installation, if that'll be like this fall or next spring.
So I can speak to the design of it, and then Cheyenne and Mike can speak to the height. There was some pictures submitted to the village that kind of showed what it would look like. Last time you requested, you asked us to set forth some photos of what it might look like, some samples. So Cheyenne was able to provide those, and those were submitted. As for the height,
Go with a 6-foot fence, unless the board would want us to go with 8-foot fence, then we would put 8 foot up, but. That would be.
So that you're referring to the new electric remote fencing. And then the trees behind the office, between the office and the bug line. Evergreen, probably like an arborvitae or a white.
Something arborvitae,
Okay.
something like that.
And then
Some
you
type
said
of
there was a
heights.
picture of the fence, the possible fence too? I think, I don't know, did anybody else get any of this? Oh, I didn't see it, okay.
It's a proposed, it's our current yard.
Planning commissions.
Well, I'm on the planning commission. Oh, it was back then. Oh, never mind. Then I recused myself. I wasn't here when that.
Want to take a look at this?
That's showing the gate open. Would be an electric gate. Why for that?
It's just a regular cyclone fence.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, with the-
Where's it gonna retract to? Oh, it'll retract upon itself. Okay, got you.
So what, the evergreen trees, when do you plan on trying to get those in, and what's this?
In fall, because right now planting season is real good. And we don't own the property yet. We're a little bit, you know.
Right.
It's a little bit tough, and right now, I mean, I've said to Austin several times, boy, I wish we could just go over there and cut the grass, it looks like terrible, just terrible. We're not above that, we want it nice.
It would be weather dependent and reasonable amount of time.
I already looked into the shrubbery and kind of have a pre-order per se. But so get done with everything.
Okay.
We have any other recollections or items we wanted to ask about?
So they indicated a 6-foot high or an 8-foot high fence to be along
6 foot,
in that down now.
6 foot.
I think 6 is adequate. Anybody object to that?
You're gonna vote on amending the plan of operation?
To include the snow plowing?
Yeah, we did.
We did a motion and second.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh,
on the
yeah,
plan commission.
yeah, good point. Yep, so we did it, yep, thank you, Mike. We had a motion and a second to amend the plan of operation. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries, thank you.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend to the village board to rezone parcel LANV 0067965, LANV 00679650001, and LANV 00679650002 at 201-151 West Main Street from B2 and Q to light industrial.
We have a motion and a second to recommend approval of the rezoning. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, village board. Yes, sir.
We need a motion from the plan commission to recommend the issuance of a special use permit.
I make a motion to recommend to the village board a special use permit for this 201-51 West Main Street land.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to issue the special use permit. Any further discussion?
That's containing the 6 sea containers, the frontage on Main Street, the concrete asphalt stockpiling,
and the asphalt used for
the main parking of the trucks.
And the future salt storage area.
That's they need a permit for that one.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to approve the special use permit. All right. We can move on to B, item B, which is the action of the village board. So hearing all of that,
I'll make a motion that we, the village board accepts the recommendation of the plan commission. For that property at 201-51 West Main Street. And do I need to add the special use?
No.
Oh, okay,
and their plan commission recommendation.
okay, got it.
We have a motion.
And
Yes, sir.
On the condition that they own the property.
on the condition that they own the property, amend my motion.
Okay, so we have an amended motion and the second to accept the planning commission's recommendation with the added condition that the applicant owns the property or closes on the property and obtains ownership. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It's been a spin cycle, but thank you for putting in the hard work.
Yeah.
Welcome to Lannon. Officially. You can cut that grass now. Right, item number 7.
We'll be done tomorrow. Just so you know.
Item number 7, discussion and possible action by the planning commission on plan of operation and site plan for the Lannon BP 20093 West Main Street, Lannon, Wisconsin. It's my understanding that we have a pending purchase of this property. And the timing of such did not allow to go through a full new plan of operation application. I did indicate to Mr. Wood that I felt if nothing was really changing, simply updating the plan of operation temporarily could help facilitate moving that forward.
I actually pulled the materials from when the previous owner went through the exact same scenario. And I thought I would do them a favor and dig up the old plan of operation site plan, because surely it would be better than what was submitted. And it was a photocopy of the exact same one. So since that time, we've kind of had our change in expectations for something, more professional, drawn to an original scale, et cetera, et cetera. But my comments, had I prepared them in writing, would have been also a copy of when we last reviewed this about 6 years ago. And that would be that the use conforms. It's the change in ownership, it's not a change in use. If they change the name or the title, they need to come back for a sign permit separately. And if this is approved, I would request that the plan commission add a condition that they follow up and submit a site plan that is drawn to scale.
Updated.
And I would suggest adding a time frame to that.
Those were going to be my recommendations as well. Did any of the commissioners have any comments on this item?
Has this been, it says here it's on well, has this been hooked up to the village?
Yeah, that has to be updated. That was connected to the village, yes. Only about a month ago, or two, that's the one that they had to run the laterals down the bug line trail.
Yeah, I have a question too on the hours of operation for holidays you have same, so is it the same as Sunday or the same as Monday through Friday and Saturday?
Are you folks the applicant? Okay, so the hours of operation on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays,
From 8 AM to 7.
8 to 7, okay.
Okay, so that's completely changed.
Yeah,
What does it say?
So Monday through
Friday.
Friday,
Monday to Friday, 5 AM to 9 PM.
and then Saturday,
Saturday, 8 AM to 7 PM.
yeah,
Sunday's the same?
and then your holidays. Would be the same as your normal day, if it lands on a Tuesday, it would be Tuesday's hours,
Yes.
okay.
so it'd be same as day of the week.
Yep.
Okay.
How do we handle, I assume you'll have 24-hour. Pump.
Say it again, sir?
You'll have 24-hour. Pay at the pump when you're not open. As it is now.
You can purchase gas from the pumps without an attendant there.
Yeah,
Use your credit card.
if you have a credit card.
I think you could just amend that or add a note to the plan of operation that says pumps 24/7.
Well, how much time should we give them to amend the plan of operations if the drawings? And meetings,
Kind of what I was thinking.
I would recommend 30 days.
30 days.
If they're gonna, yeah, you are the owner now. Are
We
you,
will be,
when will you be closing?
June 20th, we are closing.
Okay, I think 30 days.
What if we did, if I may suggest, the July Plan Commission meeting would fall on July 27th. So, to get in the packet, we could do whatever Brenda would say as a date that we would want that in the packet.
Like the 20th?
yeah,
So by July 20th, we'll submit a updated drawing of the site. Here, you can email me and I'll send you the requirements of the drawing.
Okay. So, so what we are closing at June 20th, will it be okay?
Yep.
Then we just need to add this. Use the new additional.
Yep, after the fact.
And you just need to focus on one.
Yeah, it doesn't even necessarily have to be professional, but it has to be drawn to scale. The one right now is just drawn by hand. And I can talk you through the requirements of the drawing that we need.
Now. Then you need, or do you have a better version of this?
I do have a better version of that, yes.
The best we can do.
Right.
On exterior lights, I believe there's some lights that are pointing outward, they need to be tilted downward. Because anybody coming from the east going west, when they come over that hill, are blinded at night. So then lights need to be tilted down and not out.
About the lights on the canopy.
I don't know which one, I'm
Or
so
they-
blinded,
were they-
it might be on the big sign or something like that.
It's on the big
There's-
pole, on the pole light.
Yeah, there's a big light that just.
Do we have any other comments other than the scaled drawing, the changes to the hours and the specification of the 24-hour pump availability and the lighting concern? The pole lights. Any concerns with a 30-day requirement to get this submitted to the clerk by June 20th? Or July 20th, excuse me. Sorry about that, didn't mean to cause panic. July 20th. Sounds like we almost have a motion.
Well,
That's my.
we can get into the landscaping a little bit, but everything seems to die over there.
Pretty tough.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve a plan of operation for land and VP with the noted hours. The site plan to scale by July 20th. And lights being tilted down and the gas pumps are 24/7.
What?
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Did you have an additional question you needed to address?
He just asked, which specific light.
When it's dark, you just drive from the east, you'll see which one. You will see it.
Just drive both ways.
Okay, you'll see it. After dark, it's another 45, another hour.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn the planning commission.
We have a motion to adjourn the planning commission. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The planning commission is adjourned. All right, item 9, discussion and possible action on the reading correction and approval of the minutes from the 5/12/23 village board meeting. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, discussion and possible action on the reading correction and approval of the minutes from the 3/2/23 special village board meeting. Motion to approve. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports, finance and personnel. Nothing at this time for them. Legislative,
Nothing at this time.
Parks and Recreation and Beautification.
We purchased a replacement strap style swing for the broken one and it was given to Dennis. I haven't checked if it's been replaced yet, but that's all I got.
Public Safety,
Nothing else tonight.
Public Works, Recycling and Sewer.
We expect the, this to be swept this week by the county. And then there are some dead trees on Railroad Road north of Main Street that we expect them to come out and survey as well as cut down within the next, and maybe 1 or 2 weeks. But it's on the schedule. I talked with them and we should be out to take care of them. Other than that, I have none.
Thank you, Ron. Quarry Committee, I did, I'll speak on behalf of the Quarry Committee, absent a chairperson here. I did receive a complaint from a resident over at Whispering Ridge Estates about early start and late running operations at the quarries again. Similar to, I believe, some of the concerns that I had brought up about 3 or 4 years ago when I was still living over at Whispering Ridge. So we'll need to keep an eye on that and assign that task of making sure that we remind the quarries of their operating hours forthcoming.
Some of that is at the quarry across the street and Lisbon.
Yes.
When they run that pump.
Yep. Understood.
Where are the, I'm sorry.
Um,
What are the hours? That's a good question.
I believe it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I believe, or is it 6 p.m. Can't remember.
It's 6 a.m. Until 8 a.m. on weeknights. And 7 a.m. Saturday until 4 p.m. I believe. It's not second shift. Yeah, the second shift during the week.
So we'll need to review it and make sure that they're adhering to those and then have some discussions. Department reports, clerk's office.
Working on finalizing utility bills for the end of the month, have a couple of little more training sessions with that, and then still working on the accounting software as well. Hopefully we'll have that updated in the next month.
Thank you, Brenda. Police department.
Just the crime summary, I just wanted to point out the most noteworthy thing on here, which is the auto theft that occurred from Bibs and Bibs on May 10th. It's part of a countywide auto theft rash that's been going on since about April 19th. There've been 56 incidents of auto thefts. 90% of them have the doors open and keys inside the vehicle. So it looks like Landon was not targeted in particular. So we have no reason to think it's going to continue here. It's usually occurring in Brookfield and Harlan. And just to bring some closure to it, that vehicle that was taken for Bibs and Bibs was recovered in Milwaukee after a pursuit. There are a number of people in custody. And I think the right people are in custody because there's only been one incident in the last 2 weeks. So.
Excellent, thank you, Chief. Okay, item 13, citizen comments. This is meant for public comments on any subject without discussion by the board of trustee members or action, except for possible referral to a government body or village agent. Do we have any public comments? Go ahead.
I did sign up on your sheet.
Thank you, sir.
Mike Graham, 20545 West Go. The other day I received the civic alert for the Optimist Club in a meat raffle. I think the civic alert should only be used for land emergency, water and sewer. And not to promote a meat raffle, a pancake breakfast, a car show or anything like that. It should be emergency use only. Otherwise, people are gonna turn it off and not use it. That's my comment.
I will just go ahead and address that one publicly, if I may. There are different types of alerts that everybody is able to sign up for or not sign up for. community events and things of that nature is an opt-in portion of that system, so you should be able to log in, and if you don't want to be notified of those, you can adjust your preferences to indicate that. But we'll check it out.
Okay, we'll check it. We'll log in.
Um,
So when you log in, you have to create a login, or you're using your phone number, your email?
How did you opt in? Did you send a text message?
When
Or
you
did
first
you
open
go-
it up to the public,
Yeah, so you went through your computer and went to the website to sign up?
No, I think
we went through the village board.
village
Oh,
clerk.
okay, well, then we can take care of that for you, I believe, Brenda. So the categories are weather alerts. Governmental alerts, meaning this, the schedule of government
Meetings.
meetings. There are emergency alerts like a boil order order would be in that. And then there is public events. So that's, we need volunteers, we're having a parade, the police are having a rodeo. So if you don't want to get those, you can opt out of those. And because we did it, I think Brenda can go in and select just the emergency alerts or just the weather alerts, whatever it is, so you won't get things you don't want to get.
I would just coordinate with Brenda and she can help you get that done. Okay, any other citizen comments?
I do, I'm not on the list, so.
Okay,
Cynthia Grimm, 20545 West Good Hope Road, Lannon. My question is the historical sign ever gonna get reposted in front of the village hall? And two, what is happening with the sale of the property? On that road by the grade school?
Private road,
What is it?
private road.
on the.
Private road.
Good Hope Drive.
There's no name on it. The Good Hope Road that everybody stops at my house to find the address.
I can address both of those for you. After the meeting, or if you want to give me a call, I can fill you in on those. Any other citizen comments?
You were gonna use this time for the applicants too, right?
That's up next.
Okay.
Any other? Public comments? No, all right. Item 14. Discussion and possible action on appointing a village board trustee. I will mention, prior to delving into this, each of you should have received a copy of an email that I received, which mirrored a text message that I received from trustee Kevin Paquette earlier this evening. Who,
Right here it is.
I will read this into the record for you. Patrick, for personal reasons, I am resigning from the village board effective immediately. If you wish to discuss this further, please call me on Tuesday. Respectfully, Kevin Paquette. So I have exchanged a text message with Kevin indicating that we'll speak tomorrow, but nevertheless, he has resigned his position. So I think we have an additional decision in front of us. I've had some discussion with Mr. De La Mora about, well, do we now choose two of our four candidates? Or do we move forward with selection of one of these candidates and deal with the vacancy in some other way? Mr. De La Mora, unless you've had further considerations, I think indicated that that would be a decision that would be left up to us as a board. How we wanted to deal with that and whether or not we felt we had enough candidates to fill the two positions. I also asked Mr. De La Mora to just briefly run through and outline our line of any questioning that we have for the applicants. Make sure that we're not stepping out of bounds here and that everybody is clear on what line of questioning we should limit our questions to, or should we have any? So I'll ask you to
Sure.
add anything that you might have on this matter before we.
First of all, I'd like to amplify the basis for my advice to President Gates. This board depends heavily on the functionality of its committees with 2 vacancies, which you now have at this moment, that impairs that effort. And, at this point, the village, had advertised for people to submit, their self-nomination, and which included responses to the 3 basic criteria that the board discussed previously. In asking questions, I think you should allow each candidate, first of all, to supplement if he or she wishes to do so, the written submission that you've had. And then you should ask any question that you feel is relevant to the position. Viewing the situation the same way you would view an employment situation. In other words, such things as, are you married? Do you have any children? Those are things that are not relevant to the carrying out of the position of trustee. But other things might be, such as if you're appointed, will you run for office after a term if you are otherwise able to do so? Because the preferred way for people to get on the board is for them to stand for election, interact with the citizens of the community, and respond to all the questions that the citizens might have for them.
So, that being said, just a reminder, for us and for the public or anybody who maybe does not know. The 3 questions that we posed to interested candidates were, why do you want to be a trustee? What skills or past experiences do you feel you can bring to the board? And are you in a position to commit the time required to serve as a trustee for the village of Lanning? Which is admittedly somewhat subjective, but. So those were the 4 questions, and I think it would be a good idea to give each of you, if you're here, you know, Terry and Anna are here, Mr. Summers is here. I don't know if Mr. Allen is here. Is Mr. Allen here? No. I'd like to just give them an opportunity. Well, let's just start here in the front with Mrs. Grenier. And do you have anything that you want to add to your submission or your letter?
I thought my letter explained it pretty clearly. And was well put together. In response to availability, I am retired. So, but the little jobs that I do are more on the weekends. You know, being a church organist, those are on the weekends, it doesn't interfere with the village. I've lived here for 33 years and I've seen an awful lot of changes. Witnessed the epic tree or chair throwing meeting.
Do you have a t-shirt?
We should.
We lived
Were
through
you
it,
there?
right?
Yeah, were you there too? Yeah, for the sewer? Yeah, the chair throwing, that was interesting. But I've seen the village grow. And I'd like to see it continue to grow. And whatever I can do to help it, I would like to be a part of that. And I feel like I did not enter the race back in January. Simply because I think I need to get myself out there. I have to have a history. And I feel like if I am given the honor of being on the board, that would give me a history of what I've done, and people can go back, and then I would run, but then they would have something to go back on. It's just not going into it blindly by saying, well, I'm a housewife, I'm, you know, that kind of thing.
Does any of the board members have any questions for Ms. Grenier? No. Well, I don't have a question, but I'll commend you on your dedication to attending the public commission planning commission and board meetings. Been very dedicated in that regard.
It's a learning.
Right. Mr. Summers?
It makes me feel old, Patrick. I gave everything that I had for the last 2 years as president. I listened to the people. Everything that I did, I felt was in the best interest of this community. It played no favorites to anybody. Stood up to a lot of questionable things. And I don't think I ever broke any village ordinance in what I did. As far as the time I put in 20 to 40 plus hours a week. I am retired, but I am working. I am a member of the Lions Club. I try to put together events. I push the village events that we do have. The amount, the turnout that we had at Halloween or tree lighting, some kind of things need to get our community back together. So that was my goal. I achieved some of the goals that I had set for myself. But I never went to bed at night feeling that I did the wrong thing for this community. I lived here for just shy of 19 years. And other than when I worked second and third shift or traveled for work, I've probably been in attendance at about 3/4 of the plan commission and the village board meetings, which I think is very important before you get on the board, so you know what's going on. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Summers? No? Thank you, Don. Anna?
Patrick. I have been coming to meetings since Mr. Nagler was president, and that's when I first moved out here. So I've been coming to almost every meeting since then. I've missed a few, COVID. I won one term, 3 months. I didn't get a chance to do what I wanted to do. I was gonna meet with Ron to learn more. We were going to get together because I think he's a great teacher. And I think he has a lot of information to give and to learn from. So we had set up an appointment, but something happened and I couldn't meet with him that day. I am on the board at Whispering Ridge Condominium for the last 8 years. I do know how the system works. Granted, this is bigger terms than what I've been able to do at Whispering Ridge, but I really would like a chance to do this. Go back again and finish out my term, and yes, I will run again.
I guess I have one question, I guess that I'm curious about from Mr. Summers, and that I was a little surprised you didn't run for trustee in the last election as well, and can you just speak on that a little bit about why you didn't run for both, or but now you want to be a trustee? And I mean, I kind of
didn't think of running for. I did 2 years ago. Until you made a comment about it, I had never really thought about it. But it's a chapter. Losing the election to you and being away from it, and I still get a handful of calls a week about village business. It's like, do I really want to step away or not? And it's like, nah, in hindsight, I guess I should have.
Well, I guess I personally, I would like to thank you all and Mr. Allen, if he's watching, for expressing an interest. It's not an easy thing to do. It does take a fair amount of time and commitment. It's a serious commitment. I genuinely feel that all of you sincerely desire to do this, and so I thank you for stepping up and making yourselves available for this process. The village needs more people that want to get involved and participate, and that's been kind of a recurring theme for the last 6 years since I've been on this board, is that, you know, it would be nice if we had, you know, there's plenty of criticism around to go around, right? That's always available, but people that are willing to step up and do something about things are a little harder to find. So whatever happens here, thank you all for expressing your interest in applying. So I think, do we need to take any action, Hector, to formally acknowledge which way we want to go? If we want to appoint both positions tonight, or take some sort of course of action that would seem logical to me.
Yes, the board as a whole should decide how it wants to proceed. And then deliberate that. If it needs to be deliberated, and then apply it. The notice is broad enough for the board to make both appointments this evening if the board is inclined. But it's entirely up to you.
I'll make a motion that we appoint both trustees tonight.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to appoint both trustee positions tonight, with the understanding that one would be the remainder of Mr. Paquette's term, which is close to a year. And then my vacant seat, which would be a full term.
Do we need to, Hector, since if we approve this, I'm sure we will, to appoint both trustees. Do we need to set up something right now to say how we would go about deciding which is which, right? Like, if we do, like, you know, and how we're gonna vote, is it, you know, is this gonna be I don't know how you wanna call it, a secret vote or a verbal vote, or you know, that way then is like the most votes get the 2-year term, and then like second would get the 1-year term, or I mean, we need to lay some of this stuff out.
Yeah, well, first of all, you cannot have a secret ballot. A secret ballot is simply a written document where it's marked, and one cannot tell who the voter is. However, we can conduct a paper ballot arrangement whereby, and we just did this in another one of my communities. The first round, everyone had 2 votes to cast, but they could not be cast for the same individual. In other words, no cumulative voting that takes about in the electric world. And the top 2 people were selected on that basis. If it was a tie, then they would go to another round. The top 2 people, everyone voting just 1. And the paper ballots would be identical pieces of paper with the initials of the voter on one side and maybe taped over. And on the other side, the nominee's name. So that's a protocol, but you can do it any way you think is reasonable and fair.
Ron, how did they do it when you were appointed?
It was a ballot. That each trustee filled out
And turned into the county, it had the three names on it, and the one that got the most votes won the election.
And that was for one seat, is that correct?
That was
Yes.
one seat.
I think the added complexity to this is the the recent resignation of Mr. Paquette and now having to fill two spots. Creates a level of complexity that we weren't really prepared to deal with tonight, so
If,
we're gonna have to do this on the fly.
yeah, if we do something like what Hector had said, you know, if you want to call it a round one. And the two highest votes. Obviously, we move, then you have a second. Round of ballots, and then on that second round. Maybe you only put one name, and then that would be the name that would take the 2-year term.
I don't know that I followed you.
Okay, so we got 4 people who are running for the position. So we all, as Hector had said, have a piece of paper or whatever with our initials on it. And then on the other side, we each vote for 2 names. Brenda would do a count and say applicant A and applicant C have the most votes. So now we have our 2 trustees. We know that one's gonna be a 2-year term and one's gonna be a 1-year term. So with those 2 names, we do a second round of voting where we only vote 1 name. And then the most votes gets the 2-year term. And then defaulted is the 1-year term for the second person. So it's similar to what Hector was saying, it's just we do it 2 rounds.
The two-step process to determine the candidates and the terms.
Correct.
So I will amend my motion then to picking both candidates tonight using Steve's guideline.
Did we have an amended motion? Who seconded it?
I did, so I amend my second
Okay,
to align with that amendment.
okay, so, we have an amended motion in a second. I think, we're all in concurrence, but, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Now we simply need to,
I'm making a ballot.
Are you doing it? Paper or different paper?
5 votes times 2, so I need 10 ballots because the first round will then be our. Very high tech here in Lannon.
we're adapting to adverse conditions.
Is that in case of a recount?
Right? No hanging chads in this courtroom. Okay, so our first vote, to be clear, is going to be for just one person?
No,
The 2 candidates that you would select from the 4.
and Hector, we need, as you said, put our initials on one side and then fold it and then,
Right.
okay, got it.
And the clerk counts it and keeps the written ballots. So that. There's no need to announce who voted for whom.
You guys let me know when you're.
Bring the official picture up.
Quicker, quicker.
Oh, that's my problem, so.
Okay, so the round of one. Summers had 1 vote. Roby had 3. Grenier 5. And Allen 1. So the 2 top are Terry and Anna.
So just to clarify on this one now, you are going to select one name. And the highest vote getter of this one will serve in the 2-year term capacity. The other of the 2 nominees will fill out the remainder of Mr. Paquette's term.
Okay, so we have 3 votes for Anna and 2 votes for Terry.
Right, so yes, there's no harm in doing another motion then to just accept these. As our just for the record, so I would entertain a motion then to acknowledge Anna Roby as our selection for the 2-year term to fill the vacant seat from the election. And Ms. Grenier to fill out the remainder of the term for Mr. Paquette. So we have a motion.
Second.
In 2 seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Again, congratulations. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Thank you for your applications.
We have a female minority,
Yeah.
majority. There's gonna be some air fresheners up in this, really calm, time to come.
Right now. Okay. Well, we're gonna get them right up here.
Putting you to work right away tonight.
Some things take months around here, other things take minutes.
We're supposed to go to the victory party, so I have to come back.
Donuts? Where do you want?
Just right up front, you'll get sworn in first, and then you can grab a vacancy.
I lost my mic, that must be loud enough.
Yeah.
No, we're in the minority, I shut up. No, Colleen, we're learning to sit closer to the front.
Yeah. I've already gotten hearings, and I've had the best conversations with them I've had in years. I think this half of what people said. You won't hearing me, some people, I can't out. I'm thinking I gotta get. prepared to check it out.
And I'm gonna give this to you so that you can read out of it when you forget what I said. I can best see it.
Okay.
All right, if we raise our right hands. I state your names.
Anna Carol Roby. Tammy Grenier.
Having been appointed to the office of village trustee. Just read it back to me.
Having been appointed to the office of trustee,
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin.
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
And will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, and then I just need you guys to fill that out and sign it and then I have them over.
I have to tell you, the first board meeting I ever attended, there was one woman, Nancy Sullivan, that was on the board.
The times they are changing.
They are. Oh, I'm sorry.
We have to have everything.
Share.
Okay, for the next item up is, item 16, discussion of excuse me, 15, discussion of possible action on plan commission appointment. So in reviewing, some of the appointment needs, of the village, for planning commission, we finally, had nailed down that we have one additional, commissioner spot. I had some conversations with Mr. Newman. He's a regular attendee. I think we're all well aware of his historical knowledge that he brings, in terms of things that have gone on in the village, also, his knowledge of the ordinances, since he was involved in writing many of them himself. So I felt that it would be a good addition to the planning commission to appoint Mr. Newman to fill that remaining spot. I'm asking for affirmation from the village board to formalize that.
I will make a recommendation that we approve the Newman to the planning commission.
Second.
Is there a specific term period? Here, it should be.
Yeah, he's a citizen appointment.
1 year.
Yeah,
1 year.
that's a 1-year appointment. We have a motion and I
Yeah.
did hear a second, right?
I did.
Yep, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Newman.
Thank you, and as my first official action, I would remind you that the village has a requirement for a fence permit that would have to be issued by the building inspector.
There you go.
Right on it already,
Earnings keep.
right? Item number 16, discussion and possible action on quote for tree removal at the village park. This came up through Miss Lake. And from Miss Grimm. I believe we had some discussion about whether or not this was a county responsibility, if it was in the right of way or not. I don't know, Ron, if you ever heard anything from them or not regarding this specific tree at the park. It's not.
They are due out to look at the 4 trees that are in the right of way of the county. And I'm waiting for them to get in touch with you to come out and take a look. And if they determine that they're going to go take them down, we won't have to worry about it.
Right,
I know Dennis has spoken to a few people, Asplund and somebody from the county, and, or at least he told me, and his indication was they said they wouldn't touch it, but we'll see what they say.
maybe
And
you know someone who doesn't, I do want to bring up in addition to that, so we did get a quote for having it taken down by Cut and Go. We would obviously prefer to have the county do it if you are able to get that to happen. I am gonna point out two other things. There is a live locust next to it. It has two main trunks. There's a split in the middle and one side is drooping over the power lines. Dennis indicated that he would like to have that branch that looks like if it goes, it's gonna take a power line down, trimmed back. So I talked to Cut and Go, Matt at Cut and Go said, well, you know what, that split down the middle of the tree, if I can take one side off, but the other side's probably gonna die and you're gonna have to take the whole thing down. So he gave me an additional bid that was taking down the locust, which is kind of right in that same area. And then there is a huge stump in the playground where the chips are for the play area. And he measured that up and gave me a quote for chipping that out too. So what I think we should do is just table this whole matter until you can find out if we can get the county to do at least some of the work, and then we'll revisit the paid portion of removing the stump from the playground area and maybe dealing with that locust that looks like it's compromised. Okay,
is that a motion to table?
I will move to table this item until Public Works.
Yeah. So we get some county, feedback.
Feedback.
And what we, put it together.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Okay.
Ms. Martin seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries the table. Item 17, discussion and possible action on receiving Yamaha UTV for police department.
Lieutenant Lang, found a program offered by Yamaha that provides law enforcement agencies with, UTV, for nothing, basically. It's renewable every year, so if we were to get a UTV, we could, trade it in for a new one every year, indefinitely. I think this would be a good tool to have for the car show, trick or treat, national night out, bloodline patrol. I think of all kinds of uses for this thing. As far as possible expenses, we have oil changes about every 50 or 100 hours, and that would be about $15. Insurance costs would be $0 in 2023 and $57 to insure it in 2024. And possibly about $100 worth of emergency lights and details. That would be the only expenses I can think of for this. We have room in the garage to keep it behind the motorcycle. So I think it would be a good tool for us to have.
What are your intended uses for this? You mentioned, car shows, you mentioned, bloodline patrol. I thought that's when we had a motorcycle.
We do use the motorcycle for the bug line. That would be interchangeable. Oh, I did forget, there was a $35 fee to take a DNR course for UTV operation, so that would be another expense.
Is it something you're looking at on the street?
No, this would be only on the street to get to the bug line or whatever event that we're going to. We are exempted from street operation restrictions. So as a municipality, we can operate it on the street, even though other people can't. We don't need to register it. So as a law enforcement agency, we have a lot of the latitude.
And is this, so each year you have to reapply for the use of this?
So we can keep this one for longer than a year if we'd like to, or we could trade in for a new one every year. But as soon as we decide we're done with the program, we just surrender the UTV and we're done. There's no further.
So essentially, it looks to be as if maybe a couple $100. I mean, like you said, the emergency lights, decals, oil changes, insurance. For a $20,000+ vehicle of some sort.
Each officer has to go through the DNR class.
Each officer that was gonna drive it would have to do that, yes. Not sure everyone wants to drive it.
If something were to happen, you'd have to come up and get it. And go down to the bug line or wherever, because not gonna be consistent with other streets, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so this would be a special purpose vehicle, basically, right?
Do you feel that, because pretty much for the most part it's free. I mean, yes, there are some costs involved, but do you feel yourself, it'd be a benefit to our department and the community? Do this?
I do, I think it's a little bit of a luxury, we could possibly get by without it, but it'll be a good tool to have. Instead of having to borrow a UTV from Menominee Falls Fire Department for the National Night Out or car show, for example, we would have that. It'll be available for other departments to use if they need it as well.
Yes.
I really don't know more than what the chief has indicated. I did look at the loan program agreement. It is this one page, all that there is, chief.
Yes, sir.
Okay. For your information, it is silent about the renewability of the loan of the vehicle, but I have no reason to doubt what the chief has indicated. And I do believe that his comments with regards to the insurance have been run through our insurance broker.
Yes.
The agreement requires a minimum of $500,000 in coverage.
We already have that.
We do? Okay. However, there is language that says that to the maximum extent allowed by law, agency will indemnify, defend, and hold harmless Yamaha Motor Corporation, its subsidiary director, and so forth, for all claims, losses, damages, suits, fees, judgment, costs, and expenses, including attorney fees incurred in responding to such claims. That the indemnities may suffer or incur arising out of or in connection with the agency's negligence, willful misconduct, or breach of any representation, warranty, or other obligations under the agreement. Any allegations that the agency use of the unit caused any injury or harm to any person, any personal injury, including death or damage to property resulting from the agency, employees, agents, acts, or omission. The indemnity will give notice of any claim to the agency, and the agency will defend the indemnities at the indemnity's request. I read that only to point out one point, and that is that by statute, the exposure that the village has is limited, it's capped under the state statute. However, contractually, this language does away with that statutory cap on liability. So the question becomes, theoretically, do we have enough insurance to cover claims of that sort? Probably in most cases, but you can imagine an extreme situation where there's flipping of the vehicle or collision with another vehicle, and somebody does die. There may be a situation in theory where the village's statutory defenses may not hold up because of this language. I just bring it to your attention. You have to evaluate the risk associated here.
Would that be substantially any different than the use of, say, the village's police motorcycle?
If it's a motorcycle owned by the village, which we do own, the liability is capped.
So it's the ownership that makes this distinction.
Well, the ownership and this language.
That's a loan. as opposed to
Yeah.
owning it.
Think of it in terms of, you borrow a car from, an agency that has surplus vehicles and it's $1 a year, but they want you to sign this agreement. Basically says if you use the vehicle, cause injury, and it's in excess of whatever insurance you might have, you're responsible.
Would any of our other insurance pick that up if that was the case, if something like that did happen?
Some kind of umbrella.
Oh,
Yeah, like,
So yeah, this is the very first thing that they raised, independent of municipality, the statutory cap is always the first line of defense.
mhm,
And the response is, that's true, but you waive it by entering into the
Got it.
agreement. So what I typically try to do, and this is common language that is used, I try to go back and negotiate the language down, either eliminate it totally or have language that says, but this indemnity agreement does not waive the statutory liability cap. And I've had some instances where they've accepted that. It depends on the agent.
my gut feeling is that if Chief Bell was to go back to Yamaha and ask them to do that, I mean, do you really think that they would?
He can blame me.
I'm just saying, because I mean, I can see, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, 'cause, I mean, on the other hand, they're giving you a $20,000+ machine. For our cost, a couple $100, you know, for the use of it, and I can see why they want to be held liable for any of that, since they're doing this.
It's, it depends on the circumstances. They get this product out on the road, others see it. Others see that the police department is using it.
Mhm.
Typically, the police are careful about what equipment they select, be it weapons or automobiles. It's good PR, and then more fundamentally, by and large, most people that work for police departments are careful, well-trained,
Right.
and thoughtful, so it reduces their exposure considerably.
Well, my thought is, for the limited exposure that we were using, to deny it. But I will make a motion that we send the chief back, we table it. And we send the chief back to Yamaha to see if, in conjunction with Attorney Delamore, to change the wording on the contract to be more beneficial to the village. And return with that if it happens.
So we have a motion to table the item, pending a possible change in language and outcome from Yamaha. Do we have a second?
One quick question before we just have a second. Chief, you know, with this, what do you want to call it, promotion or loan term? Is there a deadline when this has to be turned into Yamaha by, you know, X amount of date, or I mean, is it,
To my knowledge, it's an ongoing program.
okay? So if we did table it till next month for you to find the information out, you wouldn't be losing out on this if we had to make a decision later on the road a little bit.
Correct.
Okay,
So we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion. I think we should at least see if we can have the verbiage reworded if they would allow it. I personally think this would be a good thing for the village. I also want to keep the village's interests protected, yeah, for something. I mean, and I agree, you know, the police officers are better trained than the average Joe who has these. They're not going to be ripping around and, but you still have to, you know, with the verbiage CYA. So
So we have a motion and a second, to table this until the next meeting.
Yeah.
Pending, further, deliberation by De La Mora and, Chief Bell. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. The opposed? Motion carries the table. Item number 18, discussion and possible action regarding the Plan Commission's recommendation to revise ordinance section 78-48 accessory uses and structures. To contemplate the total number and area of accessory structures allowed in residential districts that do not have an attached garage. Mr. Wood, do you have anything?
I'll attempt to keep it brief. The intent here is to treat existing residential properties similar in terms of how large of a garage they can have. So the crux of the situation is that with attached garages, there's in effect little to no meaningful limit on how large an attached garage can be. However, for a lot of the, there's a lot of older housing stock. And a lot of detached garages, the ordinance right now calls that rightfully an accessory structure. But the total area of an accessory structure in residential areas is limited to 800 total square feet that you can have between two different accessory structures. At the last month's Plan Commission meeting, I provided an example of analysis of 6 different properties that could potentially be affected by this. So I just quick looked up online what the normal size of a 3-car garage is. For example, it's about 1,200 square feet. So in effect, I think given today's people have more vehicles, more accessories, etc. The ordinance right now can be restrictive. Another example, some of the samples properties that I provide a summary on, one of whom approached President Yates asking if there was anything that could be done. They have approximately a 600 square foot garage. It's too small, it's not up to the limit. Practically speaking, no one's going to do a very expensive construction renovation just to add 200 more square feet onto a garage. They'd probably either at that point want to tear down and start over. Same question, why would you tear down a 600 square foot garage to build one that's only 30% bigger? So the thought is that you just simply make a provision, or this ordinance would attempt to make a provision for people that are in a situation where they cannot have an attached garage. I'll just state, for example, there's all kinds of building codes, etc., that even if someone wanted to retroactively tear that 600 square foot garage down and attach it to their house, that's also very, very complicated from a building inspector, state approved plan, just all kinds of issues. So the intent here of the ordinance is that it would allow where there is no attached garage, it would allow 3 accessory structures, one of which can be larger than 800 square feet, and 2 of which can be a combination that can only total 800 square feet. So the intent here is that you make it more fair in that you're basically saying, okay, you can have a garage, everyone, whether attached or detached, you can have a garage plus 2 accessory structures up to 800 square feet. So the Plan Commission, I had drafted this, the Plan Commission filled in the blank for the total square footage in the scenario where there would be 3 accessory buildings. Came up with a total square footage of 2,200 square feet. So if someone wanted to max that out, they could build one 2,200 square foot garage. They could build a, let me make sure I get my math right here, a 1,400 square foot garage and then still have two other accessory structures, etc. That was the plan commission's recommendation. There was another blank to fill in, which this would apply to residential properties for, that were constructed in the year 2020 or prior, was the recommendation from the plan commission. As far as next steps go, Attorney De La Moore and I discussed this earlier this afternoon, and we would recommend 2 parallel tracks. This is a zoning ordinance, so it requires a public hearing. We would suggest that the village board take the plan commission's recommendation and refer this both to public hearing and refer it to the legislative committee for further discussion.
Thank you, Ben. Is that clear to everybody what we're trying to do there? That? Anybody have any questions?
I'll just point out real quick, obviously, those areas are really large for like Lake, Vine, State, etc. In the analysis I provided at Plan Commission, I was clear to point out that there's a lot area ratio already in place where the structure, I believe it's 30%. The accessory structure cannot take up more than 30% of the rear yard. So for a lot of those properties, they hit the 30% area threshold before they hit the 2,200 square feet.
And all the existing setback requirements still apply.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless Mr. De La Moore or Mr. Wood have something to add, I'll entertain a motion to recommend this to the legislative committee for consideration and to direct the clerk to move forward with scheduling a public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Did you get that, Brenda? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. The opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to make a request to amend our agenda here, if I may. And I request that the engineer's report, item number 31, be moved up to item 19 and shift everything else down. We have
I move that we amend the agenda to make the engineer report item number 19 and shift all remaining items 1 down.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. So engineer's report, you're up again.
Thank you very much. Favorite report ever. Just kidding. 3 things that I would like to report on that are outstanding. First, Hartford Landscape is out and about throughout the village starting last week, continuing starting Wednesday this week to restore some of the properties. I just want folks to understand that when we put together our initial list earlier this spring, I believe it was toward the end of April. It was still relatively wet and great conditions for growing. And then we did the RFP on May 8th, the pre-construction walkthrough on May 23rd, and now the work is happening last week and this week, and it hasn't rained but once in 5 weeks. So a lot of the areas are looking worse. Both we're working with President Yates and Trustee Nellis as Chair of Public Works on this, and they both authorized some additional areas. But just in case you hear from folks, we do also need to temper our expectations that some of this looks really bad right now due to drought conditions and things going dormant. Hartford Landscape is on the hook to water through germination. The seed they're using is guaranteed germination in 30 days, which I think is pretty standard. What we haven't sorted out is some may germinate sooner. And let's pray for rain, because after we reach germination, we're going to do another walkthrough with them to kind of sign off, and then the property owners are responsible for watering and caring for that from that point on. As a point of reference, I'll note that we, as part of the Vinton water main contract, there were and A combination of them plus Mid-Cities contract, there were approximately 200 to 220 total properties that were disturbed. 60 properties ended up on the rework list. So if you do the math, someone could do the math, but figure out that's about 65 to 70% of the properties, you know, succeeded the first go around, and we discussed this at a previous board meeting, but I know while some folks have hard feelings about everything, once we reach termination here, the success of the landscape restoration is largely going to depend on the individual homeowners from there. I will also state that they said pending rain, they will come out with their watering trucks approximately every 2 to 3 days. They're required by the contract to put a total of 1 inch of water per week on that. And instructions were provided of homeowners can supplement that as long as you don't overdo it. There were some instructions provided on the door flyers that were handed out. I believe chief did receive one complaint about the watering truck blocking the driveway. Please know this will be ongoing for at least another 2 or 3 weeks. The water truck is parked in any one spot for about 3 minutes. And they will gladly oblige any requests to move if they're temporarily blocking anyone's driveway. Second thing I want to discuss is the Stonewood Trail development. So staff did oversee the successful execution of the limited work permit that allows them to resume work. They have their insurance in place, their letter of credit in place, their stormwater maintenance agreement has been recorded. And the document is in order and been signed by all parties. So what that allows them to do is site work. It allows them to do site work for approximately a 4-month period until the limited work agreement superseded by a developer agreement. So they have resumed construction as of last week. They're working on sanitary and water. The signs that the task board and plan commission were insistent upon, the construction signs with contact information for the construction representative are up at both entrances to the site. And I believe underground work will be ongoing for approximately the next 3 to 4 weeks. You see a little bit of lull in activity as they wait for their blaster to blast more utility trenches. And then they'll begin filling and upgrading the property even further. Lastly, Rock Point Village, phase 3 landscape. I discussed with Kevin Sawal approximately 2 weeks ago. His intention is to submit a revised phase 3 landscape plan, Rock Point Village, for the June Plan Commission meeting. And that would include it. We're coming up on the time that they, at their main entrance off Main Street, will be installing the landscaped median. And they wanted to redesign that as well. So that will be forthcoming.
Couple of questions for you on that. I assume that the fire hydrant at Stonewood Trails / light pole.
Yep.
Is a temporary condition for some reason or another, but.
Yeah, somebody
And that's
notified
like-
me of that today. My initial reaction is they are bringing in about 4 feet of fill to the site. So I don't know how high it's sticking up, but just as the economies of earthwork go, they wanted to blast shallower trenches and then bury everything with fill. So I will certainly bring that up with our field staff and have them verify.
And who is the field representative for that project at this point?
For the first week and a half, it was Gretchen. I believe now it's switched to a gentleman named Jeremy, but I need to double check.
You could just forward me that.
Yep,
contact
sure thing.
information, please.
And just for the record, this thing has been kind of the running joke is this thing will be ready to restart next Wednesday for about 12 to 16 straight weeks. So you can imagine we've had quite a challenge internally, just figuring out who exactly is going to be starting. So I can get you that information. Any questions come up? Isaac is still handling the construction management aspect, so you can reach out to Isaac at any time.
Thank you.
We'll probably start reading now.
Okay, well, thank you, Ben.
That's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
So this will be item 20 now, discussion of possible action on transient merchant application for Chris Ratz of 2635 Gulf Avenue, Racine.
This one. Well, he's gotta go here.
No, no.
19, number 19.
Right, which is moved to 20. So if I may continue.
The train's down here.
You started,
You started on.
Land and ordinance.
Number 19, the real
We
19.
just said 20 because that was the amended.
Amended order.
You're right.
We're on the discussion of possible action on the transient merchant application.
no, one above.
He's
The
reading.
accessory uses, what?
We did
We
that.
did that already.
Discussion of possible action on direct and preparation of an amendment to land ordinance to allow amendment of.
You got, this is an old agenda.
No,
That's
Mine
fine.
says, discussion of possible action to direct and prepare the amendment of land ordinance.
oh. Excuse me,
Sorry.
You have the old copy.
all right. Well,
Mike has an old copy
different
too.
from it. Discussion of possible action to direct the preparation of an amendment to land and ordinance 78-121 sub 3 sub C to allow commencement of a prosecution in land and municipal court for violations of the land and code of ordinances without first seeking authorization from the village board, and to identify and possibly determine compensation sources to pay the building inspector for his participation in prosecutions in the municipal and circuit courts. Excuse me, everyone, for that. Sorry. So this has come about through some ongoing planning commission issues. And some efforts to take some enforcement actions, and it's brought to light maybe some shortcomings or some lacking procedural elements. We do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with myself, the chief, and the building inspector, and representatives from Von Briesen. Either or Mr. De La Mora and Mr. Hummel. Yep. You wanna pick this up from there?
Yes, the plan commission for some months, appropriately so, has raised questions about enforcement of various code provisions within its jurisdiction. And part of the challenge has been followed through, primarily because we don't have, notwithstanding our past successes, we don't have a straightforward enforcement protocol that we use. And so the meeting tomorrow has the objective of hammering out the enforcement protocol, which is basically to identify situations either through observation or complaints from residents. Referral of those to the police department, building inspector, to have them make a site visit to educate the property owner as to the deficiencies, and to formally note that contact with a letter of some kind, so that the clock starts ticking and giving them a time period within which to come into compliance. And then to set up some kind of a ticker system to follow up. And in the event of non-compliance, the initiation routinely of a forfeiture action in the municipal court. Except in situations where action needs to be taken rather than just paying a fine. To proceed to the circuit court. I have passed out to you copy of section 78-121. Which talks about the administration of enforcement action. And I have highlighted at the bottom, section 3C. One of the stumbling blocks, if you will, to that efficient process. In other words, in the present code, it is provided that in the name of the village and with the authorization of the village board, commence any legal proceedings necessary to enforce the provisions of this chapter or the building code, including the collection of forfeitures provided for herein. And so what this means in practical terms is, right now, matters are brought to the attention of the Plan Commission. Plan Commission talks about that and then takes a position, recommends that action be taken. Then we have to come to the village board to approve the taking of the action. That impedes the process and slows it down. However, there is a financial dimension to this. The building inspector is in his first year of a 5-year contract. And that contract provides that he is to be compensated $75 an hour for his work during normal working hours, business hours, $90 an hour for performance of services after normal office hours. Municipal court typically does not start till 6, so we have an elevated fee schedule. And so rather than anticipating any action, I wanted to bring it to your attention so that you could consider, one, making changes to this provision, and two, examining what kind of a budget you have, because from the perspective of the Plan Commission, there are plenty of violations to go around with. And our office could be kept quite busy, except that it would be a financial hardship for the village if we don't manage these things appropriately. And frankly, I do not feel that as a matter of assigning priorities, that it's the lawyer's responsibility to determine those priorities, but instead the village board, perhaps in concert with the Plan Commission. We are in a different era than we were years ago, when some of you started attending meetings. The village has a different sense of self and a commitment which in the past was there, but not consistent to clear up situations.
Do you have anything to add, or comments, concerns? Go with the flow, we good with this? Moving forward, we'll just report back with our findings from our meeting tomorrow to the board and keep you up to speed and keep that in the back of your mind.
Report from your meeting tomorrow.
We have a motion to table in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Let's see if I can get myself back on track here. Any other trip ups I need to be aware of here? Is that the only addition, Brenda? Okay, thank you. Discussion and possible action on transient merchant application for Chris Ratz of 2635 Gulf Avenue, Racine, Wisconsin 53404 for fireworks sales at 19010 West Main Street. So this is our usual,
every year he flies.
every year that.
You have any problems with him at all? I don't believe so.
I've got no complaints.
I'll make a motion, we approve it. The transient, application,
So. We have a motion to approve. Let's get a second, then we can have some discussion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah. It's illegal to sell fireworks, but we're giving them a permit to do it. I don't get it.
It's not illegal to sell fireworks, it's illegal to fire fireworks.
To use them.
But we're approving it and land it to go buy it.
I've always been against this and I'll remain.
I don't say, I'm against it.
Can we ask,
I think.
can we ask the chief, if he feels that the enforcement of the fireworks is a burden on the fire or on the police department? Yeah, or a legal standing, that's.
Well, it's a transient I mean, we have the authority to either approve it or deny it, right? Right. So that's a policy decision. I think there are also other considerations. I mean, I know he puts out a bunch of flutter flags and things like that, which are not allowed. That's something that he should be notified of, if we do approve it. What fee do we charge for this?
150, I believe.
Yeah, 150.
look at it, and like you said, does chief have any issues or complaints about? I'm sure there's always firework complaints in the village during that time, but
I think those complaints will continue.
whether or not he has it,
Vendors there.
yeah,
Right. I mean, they're gonna get it one way or the other, but.
I just feel that there's a disconnect between our ordinances and then our permitting. And so, you know, I'm not gonna make a stink about it. If you want to approve them, that's fine. I'm just going to dissent on this one because I don't get the disconnect between. You're not supposed to have it, you're not supposed to fire it, and yet we're going to approve somebody selling it.
You want to change the ordinance, we can have it.
Well, you know, the other thing we consider is, you know, I suppose unless there's a statutory limitation, I mean, the other thing we could do is for these transient merchant permits, we can always raise the fee to something a little more attractive to the village instead of $150.
on those transient
Maybe that deters their.
applications, are they all the same amount of time? Or do they just fill out, I'm gonna sell from June 20th to July 4th, or I mean. On most of those merchant applications, Brenda, is there a,
Yeah, it's specified to like, what is this out to July 5th or something like that.
but I mean, if someone else were to say, I'm a transient merchant for. Flags or event t-shirts,
It's to whatever there, so we've had some in the past that door to door, you know, selling books or, you know, whatever.
right?
And it would be like typically the summer months, you know, the college kids are out there, whatever, so they would specify a time period.
But the,
It's not necessarily.
so we don't have like a scale, it's a, okay,
No,
got it,
it's based on per application.
application, okay.
Are you aware of any statutory limitations in how we administer these applications?
Well, as has been indicated, the state statute do allow the dispensing, if you will, of fireworks, but prohibit the utilization of these fireworks. And it's not an unusual inconsistency. Unfortunately, in the law. In this particular instance. The inconsistency, the disconnect that has been referred to is not unlike the disconnect where in the employment setting, an employer cannot discipline an employee or fire an employee because the employee otherwise uses a legal product off premises such as smoking. And some employers have attempted to curb that kind of activity because it increases the healthcare costs that many employers provide. There's a disconnect there. I don't know what the current state of the law is in terms of denying these permits to transient merchants, but if the police department has enough of an enforcement history, I believe that you can credibly deny a permit for the sale of fireworks under the theory that by doing so, you make it more challenging for people to obtain these fireworks and perhaps use them in the community.
And are you able to set different fee structures for the same application based on the type of merchant?
I think the fee has to be reasonably related to the enforcement component. There is a statute that basically says that all municipally imposed fees have to be reasonably related to the regulated activity. Otherwise, they're challengeable by going of all places to the Department of Revenue. Paper transaction suffices for the appeal. In this instance, because an application has been filed, it's too late at this point in time to change the fee, but I do believe you can adjust it and you can do so on an overall basis. I don't recall in the last several years, unless Brenda can correct me, that we've adjusted fees in this area, and maybe that's something that can be studied.
So just to verify, we could have a different fee for a transient merchant that wanted to go through the village and sell, say, encyclopedias than we do for somebody that wanted to come to the village and sell fireworks.
A hazardous substance of some kind. Yes, I do believe that you can make that distinction. However, you have to be sensitive about, First Amendment things. For example, if someone wanted to go through the village and sell adult magazines and you had a higher fee for that as opposed to, this Reader's Digest, if they still publish it. In charge of differential fee, I think you get into trouble there.
So I'll note that the village of Glendale charges $500 as an annual fee for any transient merchant permits. So we seem to be a little bit below the curve on our pricing in general, because that would be for like when the seafood truck comes or the peach truck comes, whatever, because I know they do that a lot in Glendale where I work. So that's one thing. So I would maybe work into our motion that we recommend that our transient merchant fee be reviewed by the legislative committee. Is that where that would go in order to do that in the future? I understand for this application, we just have to vote on it, correct? Or we have to.
Yes, we have to vote on it.
Okay.
Up or down.
Okay.
So, did we have any other discussion?
Not at this time.
Okay, so we did have a motion and a second, if I recall correctly. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion does carry. Discussion and possible action on the approval of combination Class B retail licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 to the following. Scott Burkholz of Daubers, Michael and Gina Monticelli of Mibs and Bibs, Chris Wright of 1229, Ruth Seelig and Destiny Castillo of Henny's Dugout, Abigail Zeman and Just Smokin's Barbecue.
With one note, Ruth Seelig has not turned in an application as of yet. I don't know if you want to. Approve it contingent if she does. Licenses expire at the end of the month, so I have no idea what her intent is. She was mailed the information like everybody else, and we have not heard.
Or Destiny Castillo,
Correct.
neither one.
Neither one of them did? Okay. I'll make a motion that we accept the approval of the Class B retail licenses for all mentioned, with the exception of Ruth Steelig and Destiny Castillo, unless they're able to turn their applications in before June 30th.
Yes, we have a motion and a second to approve items A, B, C, and E with a conditional approval on item D. Any further discussion? All in,
Chief Bell, you're all okay with that, right?
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion of possible action on the approval of a combination Class A retail license to Ritu Gupta of Land and BP and Quick Mart 20093 West Main Street for the period of July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024.
In light that they are closing on June 20th, can we change that date instead of July 1st and just extend it to from the June 20th date? For the transfer of ownership.
Okay, so, so what dates do you want in here?
June 20th, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
So move.
And if closing doesn't happen, then I don't know what happens.
It will happen.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Riku and we have a second from Mr. Nellis. Do we have any further discussion? Ladies, any other discussion on this item? No, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion of possible action on the approval of Class B licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024 to the following. Milwaukee Beavers baseball team at Jake Park, Land Falls Lions Club.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on the approval of non-alcoholic beverage licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024 to the following. Scott Burkholz of Daubers, Michael and Gina Monticelli of Nibs and Bibs, Rita Gupta of Land and BP and Quick Mart, Chris Wright of 1229, Ruth Seelig of Henny's Dugout, Abigail Zeman of Just Smoking Barbecue.
Brenda, did they turn in their application for this, Henny's Dugout?
No, nothing has been.
Okay, again. Okay.
Would it also change the date for the group test too, because of their ownership changing?
Yes, technically. There is still, one, the current owner has one, but yes, their license, their other licenses would go from June 20th.
Motion.
Yep.
I make a motion that we approve the non-alcoholic beverage licenses. For all of those listed with the exception of Rita Gupta, who will have the date effective June 20th, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And pending the submission from Henny's Dugout of those non-alcoholic beverage license applications. Did I do that right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Hold on. We have a
I'll
mo-
second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion of possible action on the approval of amusement device licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024. Scott Burkholz of Daubers, Michael and Gina Monticelli of Mibs and Bibs, and Ruth Seelig of Henny's Dugout.
I can tell by Brenda what how this is gonna go, so I will say we approve the amusement devices for A and B and pending C, roof sealing of Kenny's dugout. Pending their application being turned in.
We have a motion and a second to approve A and B with conditional approval on C pending receipt of an application. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion possible action on the approval of cigarette licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024 to the following. Rita Gupta, Atlanta BP, and Quick Mart, and Mahmood Khalid, Mahmood Khalid. Of Lux Vape.
That one, the Lux Vape would be contingent upon receiving that application, so.
And then Rita Gupta would be June 20th again? Yes.
Yeah. So I make a motion that the board approves cigarette licenses for A. For a period of June 20th, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and for B pending receipt of the application.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, discussion and possible action on the approval of operators licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024. I need to read all these into the record.
No.
Okay,
As
items
listed on that.
as listed through items A through CC. Any of these?
Have all been received in our office, every application, and they have gone through the police department for checks.
And no concerns with any of the applicants?
No. I'll make a motion to approve the operator's license for all listed A through double stage.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on the approval of used auto dealer licenses for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024. So the following: Alan and Debbie Schlafer, Schlafer Auto, David and Lori Bogie of Bogie Enterprises. Mohammed, that's spelled differently here, Khalid, Luxury Auto, and Marathek, Land and Motors.
We call him Mark.
Make a motion to approve the used auto dealers licenses for item or for applicants A through D.
And I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I will bring up one item again, and maybe this is something that I need to put the planning commission, but Land and Motors next door here still does not have a dumpster enclosure.
Oh, okay.
Paid parking lot too. You need to pay that parking.
Yeah, they're waiting for the DNR to approve their soils samplings from when they took the tanks out. He was hoping to have that this spring sometime, and then they were going to go through and pave everything and clean everything up and do his dumpster stuff.
Excellent.
He did come in, a couple months ago and give us that update.
Good. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion of possible action for a temporary class B for the Optimus Club of SLLB for July 30th, 2023 for the car show.
Make a motion to approve Class B license for Optimus Club.
Motion approved. Second.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Any opposed? Motion carries. I hear enough ayes, I just skipped over it. 29 or 30. Discussion of possible action on approval of resolution for CMAR report on land and behalf of the 2023.
This is one of those reports that we submit annually to them, probably results into the resolution to change. No.
I think the motion to approve the resolution to the
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution number 2023-2 for the CMAR report. And the second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on payment of the bills as recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee earlier this evening.
Make a motion to pay the bills as recommended by Finance Committee.
A motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Engineer's report has been taken care of. Attorney's report.
Briefly, there are two bills that are pending before the state legislature. One of them will be voted on tomorrow. It will probably increase the amount of shared revenue that the village will receive in terms of dollar amount. I can't tell you what it is, but it is a breakthrough because we've been locked into a minimal amount of shared revenue for many years. Secondly, there's going to be another bill that is being fast tracked that will change the regulation scheme for alcoholic beverages. And I have not had a chance to look at that bill. It was introduced last week. It's going to result in statewide issued bartender licenses. We will study that bill and advise the village accordingly. That concludes my report.
Hector, does the revenue sharing, is that a result of some of these discussions they've been having about levy limits, or is this a separate matter?
It's something the legislature put through, I believe, and I read something today that it would increase like 20% for most communities, so. I know they've been pushing it for a while, the League of Municipalities has been pushing it.
Right, very much so. It's part and parcel of that. But the bill itself does not modify the levy limit restriction as far as I know. But I've only gone through the bill once. And there's an amendment that's been introduced to modify the main bill. The big fight was over whether the city of Milwaukee, in order to increase its revenue on sales tax, had to put it to a referendum vote by the citizens as opposed to the common council. They agreed that the common council with a 2/3 vote, as well as the county board, could impose the taxes in Milwaukee County.
Thank you, Hector. President's report, I will just add a couple of things. I did get a email from Blake Thiessen from Architecture this morning. We had hoped to have it a little bit earlier prior to this meeting so that we could possibly have some visual aids for people to start viewing in regards to some very high level conceptual ideas for different areas of Lannon. Look for those here in Village Hall in the coming days. Hopefully, I'll go ahead and get those produced on some larger foam boards. Try to find an area where we can display those in here so that we can start getting some public engagement. I know that we did talk about it would be very nice to have these available here first for village residents, but also at the car show so that we could get some feedback or some input from a larger, presumably a larger audience of people coming in and out of the garage there. But we wanted to start getting a sense of conceptually what people seem to like aesthetically. So that's coming. I did receive a request for a wedding at 1229 to put on a fireworks show, and the fireworks company determined that the park was the only place to really do it. And while the chief didn't have any immediate concerns there, between myself and Mr. De La Mora, we did conclude that, you know, the last time we did have a fair amount of discussion about this when we did it for the 90th. And this is probably another one of those things that we ought to put on the list, to create and implement some policies and a permit process and a fee structure. Because I can only imagine that requests like this are gonna continue to come in, and we ought to have a way to deal with it.
Did you approve that one?
No.
Oh, you did approve it.
No. Because I only had about 2 weeks' notice. There was no board meeting in between to get board feedback from, and I wasn't gonna call a special meeting to,
Yeah, right.
just for that item, so, so. It'd be nice to have a process in place and publicized, in the event that we get further requests like this, so. I know you got a couple things already for your legislative committee, Steve, and, maybe you can throw that one on there as well.
What would we even name that?
The trifecta. Yeah,
I mean, cause,
I would say, you know, like a firework, public firework.
or private,
Private
firework display.
Perhaps you could expand it to the discussion you had earlier this year and last year. The public access to the public facility.
Sure.
Talking about park, talking about the village hall, talking about profit, non-profit groups.
Yeah, there might likely be 2 permits required there or something like that, but. You can discuss that further. Other than that, I think I'll leave it at that, so. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody want to stick around? Motion carries for adjourned.
You keep that,
How do you make a fireworks?